and it hits upon sloth and fear. It's not something you normally talk about specifically without mentioning in general, but I just think it hit on so many points that Rick just mentioned. And I want to ask you, what's one of the diseases of our culture today? What's one of the diseases of our culture, morally, spiritually? Would you say opinion? Huh? Gluttony?
Yeah.
Materialism? Excess. And who are committing these things? Men. Men are supposed to be leaders of the home, the domestic cheney. Leaders, men are supposed to be priests, bishops, popes, husbands, leaders, Randys. One of the great diseases of our culture is the absence of masculinity. That's why these kids are confused. That's why the priesthood is full of scandals. It's why the divorce rate is so high. Men are consumed with something else but being men. They're boys. They have a confusion about their role as God-given. We're too soft. We're too politically correct. And we don't hit the nail on the head anymore. We're too worried about what people feel. That's the new truth, by the way. It's how you feel that becomes the truth, not objective truth. So as I read these reflections, or actually teachings of St. Thomas, it may not be exactly what you're going through in a sense of particular sin or action or whatever, but it's definitely going to hit upon things. So it's kind of like an examination of a conscience too. Where am I? Am I the man I need to be? As a priest, as a husband, as a father, as a leader? One of the things in Curcia I've been hit by is everybody tells Father when they're spiritually acute and aware, Father, whatever you need. Well, don't waste your breath. Don't lie. Life is going to take over. You're going to become lethargic and forgetful and consumed by another world. If you're going to give your word, gentlemen, keep it. Otherwise, shut up. That's one of the faults of men today. You don't keep your word anymore. If you know you can't do a thing, just admit it. Own up. The thing about being men, gentlemen, it's inspiring, and the devil can't have it. The presence of men, I'm going to give you an example. In my parish, most men don't read. They don't like to read. They're more audible. They pick up things, they remember more what they read, they listen to, for the most part. Maybe it's because it's culturally induced, I don't know. So in my parish, it's all women that teach catechism, okay? Well, in the minds of people, women are supposed to teach catechism, right? It's what women do. Men do their thing, they work, they come home, they grunt, they gripe, and whatever. And they're uninvolved, or they're always distracted. Jim, what percentage of your life is distractions? If you had to give a percentage. At Curcia, for 15 years, I've been asking, and the average is around 60 to 80% entertainment, distractions. Between hunting, fishing, gambling, drinking, whatever else. What would you say? What's the percentage of your life devoted to distractions alone? Would you dare admit? 75? Anything over 50 begs the question, why are we saying we have no time for prayer? Why do I lack peace? Why don't I have time to help at JPG or Curcia Center or whatever? Well, where's your time going? And when you're going to stand before God, people, is that stuff going to be important? Your distractions? If 75-80% of distractions and entertainment is what a man gives his life to, if you started a church like that, would it be not involved? Would the participation rate be astronomically high? Of course it would. But no one wants to talk about it or admit it. We all want to say how wonderful we are. We're doing our best. We're just human. Blah, blah, blah. Have you ever read St. John Vianney or Fulton Sheen? When I read them, I think I'm about a shade away from hell. I'm like, wow, I need to up it up a bit. Like big time. When I read these people, these men that were given by grace by God to do what they did and write what they wrote, it's irrefutable where we're not, where we are not. As priests, I triple dog dare to have a convocation of priests using only Fulton Sheen, John Vianney in their sermons. That place would be empty. Or give it in a homily at Mass. You think people don't go to Mass now. Men don't want to hear it. You know why? Because they love entertainment. They love distractions. In fact, they put that as the primo thing of their life. And try to take away a man's distractions and his pleasures and his entertainment. If they fought like that for God, you'd have holy men, wouldn't you? Yes or no? Yes. Committed men. And I'm going to argue the point in here. That's why the kids are not going to church, are involved, or they're and soft-skinned. Where are they going to get the example? And you say, well, I go to Mass on Sunday, Father. I mean, that's equivalent to you saying to your wife, look, stop bothering me. I gave you the vows 20 years ago. I said I do, all right? Well, then what? The rest is I do. You spend the rest of your life being one with your wife by fulfilling the vow, which means I do. In the good times and bad, sickness, that sounds like the mundane life to me, doesn't it? It's not staying home, fishing, hunting, doing whatever, playing Notario, whatever else, whatever the game is. Notario, I don't know. I'm up to date. Them games you play. It's not any of that. So let me just go through some paragraphs as I extrapolated. And as you hear it, examine your conscience. We need the presence. Just like y'all need the presence of a priest for a supernatural level, huh? Someone's married to God to inspire prayer and holiness and all that. Well, we need the presence of men to inspire as well. Our young people need to see you more than an hour on Sunday. They need to see that men place importance on what... I mean, you're sending your kids here to do what exactly? Just learn? Yeah, and how do you become a saint? You just learn? Isn't that the start of it? Then it's the what? The do. That's right, the action. Without that, you're a liar. You're a liar. You're a contradiction. It's in the doing. The apostles didn't just learn that God was wonderful, incarnate, and miraculous. They fell in love with him, did they not? And they got stupid along the way. That's normal, so don't be depressed about it if you have failures. It comes with the game. They were talking about who's going to be first. Calm yourself down there, Slick Willie. Can you drink the cup that I drink? Man, yeah, Everybody wants to be first. And they got in trouble. Do you want to be first? It's all about you? It's the same question. It's about me, my schedule, my time, my day. And then when it comes to JPG, you do, basically all you're doing is paying a check. Is that all you're doing? At Crescia, are you just a driver? You drop someone off because they're having some problems, you want to fix them. Is that all you're doing? Do they see you around? There needs to be more Randys. In fact, I have a Randy too. Without him, everything would stay broke at Crescia. Everybody loves Crescia and to encounter Christ. And they never show back up but to drop somebody off. Yes or no? Yes, I'm always right. You wanted to talk? Well, buckle up. You know what? Get me here, you're gonna get it. I'm lazy too. You're not the only lazy one in the world. I want to stay home too. Maybe driving Lafayette and crazy people. So, number one, this little backdrop. Fear has many faces. A smile, a frown, turning red, vengeance, help. Fear wears many faces in human life. In a man who fears work, it is laziness. That's how it's exhibited. Now, on looking upon it, you just say a man's lazy. What does he fear? Let's get to the cause of it. A man, if I don't even need this because I'll print it bigger than normal. In a man who fears future disgrace, it's shamefacedness. So if he fears future disgrace, it's exhibited, the fear comes across as shamefacedness. In the man who fears the present disgrace, it's shame. He feels like everybody's reading him. In the man who faces an evil whose extent and magnitude seem immeasurable, which is a lot of things in life, in our particular vocations, fear appears as amazement. That's how fear looks at that moment. In the man faced with sudden and unlooked for danger, we find stupor. It's a paralysis of his whole being. When a man fears a future misfortune, which he cannot foresee, his fear is called anxiety. So all those different facets of fear, and they're all what? Crippling. They don't invite people to think of God. But what's your problem? And as for us, thus who suffer it, it's a prison, is it not? How many times did our Lord fuss at them for being afraid? Several times, yes? You can't preach the gospel. You can't convert souls if you live in fear. You just have to name it. What is that fear? What is crippling you? The basic cause of fear. Now this, when I read this, I was like, oh, wow. The basic cause of fear is love of good. But what's your good? What do you consider good? That's the question. So the basic cause of fear is love of good. A man fears something because it will deprive him of some good. The second cause of fear is a man's feeling or conviction that he is unable to cope with the danger. That's the second part of it. So he becomes crippled. The first effect of fear is a paralysis of man's power to act. An example, a woman confronted with an angry rattlesnake is frozen with fear. She is powerless to attack or run away. This is the great evil of fear, that it prevents man from acting for his own good, even though he knows it. That's how crippling it can be. So when the Lord, for example, says, be vigilant, you can't serve both God and mammon, basically put God first. If you put the world first, knowingly or not, is going to drive the ship of your life. It's going to rob you of all action. You can pray all day and wonder why you have no peace. It's because you're not acting. What happens to man doesn't work? If you think work is not an issue, it is an issue. It's a manifestation of what you believe and who you are. If you don't show that, you're miserable. You're made to produce fruit, whether it be in priesthood, marriage, at work, whatever. Sometimes when a danger is still far off, fear will move a man to seek advice of others. When advice is sought from prudent and courageous men, this effect of fear is good. So fear doesn't have to be crippling. And what do we do when we talk to old people about fear? Man, that's going to pass. And it's like magic. Why? Because they have battle wounds. They're still alive. And they're laughing at you. Don't worry about that. So it lets you know, I'm being senseless in this fear. People survive worse. In fact, who inspires us the most? The hero, the virtuous, courageous person, because they survived worse than we did, and it helps us to weather our storms well. But fearful men are not good advisors for other fearful men. So basically, you have a world where men, as a whole, they're losing their faith. They're seeking their own worst enemy, which is ourselves, to guide their lives, making a mess of their lives, and they're crippled in some kind of fear, however that manifests itself. And so where are we getting advice from? Well, the pool is limited, don't you think? And people don't spend time with our Lord like they should. As men went away from God for fear of not having something or missing out, they're suffocating from all hope. And the fear becomes their life, their choices. With a smile. With things in their house, they have everything they could possibly want. They chicken. You know why? Because to tell the truth today, what happens to you today when you tell the truth? You get demonized, huh? So if your fear is to be popular, you ain't gonna say a word. If my fear is being ambitious, if I want to wear a pointy hat with some magenta piping, you think I'd be like I am? Psst. It gets you in a small donkey parish. And to give you Crescia, they want to kill you sooner than later. How do you do it, Father? Well, not what you're doing. Confessions 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, hearing people's problems from A to Z for 20 years. Every weekend. Come get you some. Come get you some. Come on, you want to wear my cassock? Come on. I'll wash it for you. Fearful men do not seek good advisors of other fearful men. The timid will usually counsel either timidity or reckless daring, but never action. It's always caution, caution. There might be a consequence. There might be a consequence, men. Oh my gosh, should you be crucified? What a nightmare. That you lose popularity, or your wife fusses at you, or people at the work call you a Jesus freak, whatever. Or you might miss a soap opera, or you might miss your show, or you might miss a ski trip. Our fear is misplaced. What should be the only fear of a man? Loss of God. Loss of God by inaction. How do you lose a friend? You stop talking to him. How do they become a stranger? You stop talking and being around them. Yes? What happens to the man who tells you, oh, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you out? What do the words become? Nothing. In fact, annoying. Gentlemen, you tell me, am I hitting the nail on the head, the culture of men today? You know, I tell my people all the time in my parish, you know, some priests don't want to say things like this because they don't want the collection to go down. Y'all don't give anyway, so buckle up. If you give more, I might give you a pill or two. But, you know, so, man, my eyes getting bad. Sloth. Now, we talked about fear, which is crippling. Fear is useless. Even Yoda says that in Star Wars. I mean, if Yoda says it, it's got to be semi-true. I mean, you know, much fear I sense in you. Some truth to that, you know. Fear was never our Lord's favorite thing in his apostles. And one of my favorite scenes is the fact that, you know, Peter, for all his warts, loved our Lord so badly, so wonderfully. And even his failures were attractive, don't you think? Because he didn't fail altogether. He learned, huh? It forged who he was, and he became. He walked on that water. Have you ever stopped to consider that, men? a man born of a woman walked on water. And his whole focus was on our Lord himself. He was present to our Lord's power. Lord, if it is, and even in his amazement, and he had a fear, it's like, what am I looking at? So he says, Lord, if it is you, bid me come to thee. If only our prayers as men were like that, huh? That we're faced with impossibilities, huh? Faced with this fear, how far away God seems to be from us, yet we have enough love for him to say, Lord, if it is you, because I'm confused, I don't understand, and I'm in a boat, and it's rocking away, and you seem to be fine. Bid me come to thee. Peter, this man giving our Lord authority over his choice. Come, he says. It's within you to do it. And Peter does this. But then when the man Peter begins to look at the world around him, and which should be, it supersedes his faith in the impossibility. He starts to sink, and the Lord addresses his fear. Do you think Peter ever forgot that lesson? Not at all. I dare say it would help him form the words, don't crucify me like my master. Do it upside down. I mean, he even instructed them how to do it. So what do you do with fear? You trust God more. I'm sure there was no absence of fear in Peter, but he decided to be a man about it and put God first in that moment where nothing could distract him or entertain him or confuse him. If you're going to do this thing, let's do it right. That's what men do. And it doesn't matter who's looking, who's paying you, who's congratulating, or who's smoking, blowing smoke up your pants. I almost said skirt because I'm wearing a cassock, but your pants. Sloth is a capital sin. Fuels others. The slothful man will neglect his own spiritual welfare because he is afraid of the labor involved. That is the coup de grace. Isn't it sad, men, how we burn it up to work for food on our table, to build up our own homes, which is required, which is not a sin, but should it be priority? Should that take a lesser place than building up the house of God on earth? Where's your house going to be when you die? Someone else is going to own it and repaint it. And even say, man, that was a dumb design. That's what you're working for. You know, people, we are dust. You have to always keep that in mind. Whatever you're working for, whatever you have, even the body you sit with, is dust. That should help you calculate and measure fear and trust of God. It puts everything in perspective. The slothful man will neglect his own spiritual welfare because he's afraid of the labor involved in seeking true happiness. That's why happiness is elusive. Think about it, people. Where was man the happiest? When he was naked in paradise. And why did he lose it? He put himself before God. He decided he wanted something else. He wasn't a man. He became less a man. His laziness will lead him to omit to do what he ought to do to be truly happy. Now, this is not Father Ted's words. This is St. Thomas Aquinas, the smartest ox in the world. The smartest dumb ox in the world. His laziness. That means, gentlemen, what is laziness? You know, a man could be a hard worker and be lazy. Sometimes when he works, it's because it benefits him. But when it comes to things of God or other people, what happens? I've seen men. There's nothing more insane to me than a man who gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning in the iceberg 30 degrees of weather to go sit in a blind next to water to may or may not be able to shoot little bitty birds in the sky. That's a lot of work, is it not? To me, it's impossible. It's like, why? And to me, it's like, and I've seen men with football or sports. They know statistics like it was their own history, like the birth of their child. They know intricate details, the past and the future and the history, the biography of the players. I mean, my God, if you knew the saints, as in heaven, just to clarify, like you do the football players, my gosh, you'd have their whole formula, their strategy, their technique, everything. Jim, I'm telling you, I'm not opposed to football. I'm not opposed to sports. I'm not opposed to hunting. So don't get me wrong. I know you do those things. It's fine. There's no. I'm not. I don't want you to go in the stand and go feel all miserable. That's not my point. I think the point I'm trying to make is putting perspective, putting God first. In other words, if 80% of effort it took to know the football plays and all that kind of stuff, and you give God 10% or 20%, that's sad, huh? And I'm trying to help. I want you to be happy. I, as a priest, I want your marriage to be rocking. I want you to be men that are respected in our schools, everything, because they need men. The world needs men to be inspiring. They need apostles. You know why the Lord had to go to Judea in the most primitive time in the world, almost, to find men? What would he find today? Let me quote Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. Why can't I handle the truth? It's because our truth has now become our lifestyle. And as you know, the rich man Lazarus, huh? What condemned that man, as our Lord said? Was good in this life. Lazarus, his life sucked. Dogs licking his sores. And because you did nothing, fear of you being associated with the poor or those in need. And those in need, people are not always at the door with sores. Sometimes those in need are those who have smiles, yet inside they're dying, looking for inspiration, looking for manly confidence and commitment. Just you being there is a gospel. Yes, man? Just you being here is a gospel. It manifests what we learn about. It manifests and encourages what we should be living, the life of grace. It's just not there. And why am I jumping on you for it? Well, it has to start somewhere. We have to be aware of these things because, your kids, your young men are going to be husbands and fathers. The moment they open their eyes, you're supposed to be training them how to be a good father, a good husband, a good priest. Us fools come from y'all. Y'all just saw all my daddy in different parts of my life, I'm sure. The good and the bad. For all his warts, my daddy, very strict. Follow the rules. Don't break the law. Be a good man. You bar shovel, you bring it back washed and sparkling. Better than you found it. I'm going to beat you. Not a problem. I mean, just wash it. Those type of things is what my dad told me. So that translated into my priesthood. I just can't come in here, give you a warm, fuzzy talk about how wonderful and special you are when you're not special. You know why I know you're not special? Because if men today were special, the churches would be full. Yes? If men today were special, you wouldn't have the stupidity in Congress today. If men were special, we wouldn't be scandalizing the church and the priesthood. We come from you. Freaky don't start with a collar jack. But no one talks about that, where the freak comes from. It comes from those very things you didn't want to hear about. Those distractions and pleasures and appetites. That's where freaky comes from. If it ain't God filling this, it's nasty and destructive. Because that soul, just like your car wasn't made for water, it's made for gasoline. You don't put water in a tank of a car, do you? Well, you don't put the world in this tank without an effect. You put smut, trash, that pornography, and that looking around at every ass you see, it's going to turn you into a demon. It's going to rob you of the very thing you're going to need not to go to hell. That's how serious I'm talking about. Let me tell you something, people. When I hear even priests talk today, I'm like, okay, you're giving everybody a damn pass. And I am reading John Vianney, Padre Pio, Fulton Sheen, people that could read souls. I've not heard one soul you've read, so who do you think I'm going to go with? Who do you think I'm going to trust more? The saints or some opinion? And when I hear those men speak about the gravity of hell, the reward of heaven, the morality, the supernatural grace, mortal sin, venial sin, and the accountability, the concupiscence, all of it, who do you think I'm going to listen to?